In what ways does your media product use, develop or challenge forms and conventions of real media products? The first shot in which you will see is the title, which is overlaid upon my first shot. I have used the conventional colour of red in relation to my chosen genre, in which is horror. The font used is Cracked, which enhances conventional ideas of horror and sets the opening sequence up nicely. Setting and location was important in creating a dark atmosphere. The establishment shot in which you can see was taken from the idea of continuity techniques, in which creates geographical placement for my audience. The idea was presented to me and I based my establishment shot of that of the horror film The Ring, as it sets a darkened and unexpected emotional feeling around my opening sequence. The conventions of this shot is darkness and isolation. Darkness is created due to nighttime, which stereotypically is a time in which murderers would strike. Isolation is created as there is a sole light in which appears to be in one of the upstairs bedroom. The next shot reveals that the light is coming from the victim's bedroom. Camera work and editing is crucial, especially in horror, as it can allow characters to be presented more powerful and vulnerable to the effect in which the director wishes. This shot is a low-angle shot of Chantel the victim beginning her descent of the stairs. The stairs are representative of the downwards feeling of what is about to come. The shot also shows hesitation from Chantel as she is reluctant to answer the door. Throughout my opening sequence, I used a diverse range of shot types. The main area in which enhances the scare factor of my production is the mask. The sole purpose of using the mask is so that my murderer has a hidden identity, similar to the model of Jack the Ripper in which my murderer is aspiring to be to. A horror movie would not be without knives, as they are a potent convention of horror, which can also be connoted with the blood shown, while I try to produce images of the killer sectioning Chantel's body. The purpose of using these props is to ensure my viewers are aware of the genre of my production, as well as producing enigma codes in relation to the viewing of the props. The last shot of my production is to leave my audience on a cliffhanger, as the murderer threatens to strike again. After the mask is hung up, the murderer murmurs 2 down, 1 to go. The image shown is from the titles, where I kept the same font of Cracked. I feel the style of this font is efficient and it creates a sense of warning, as cracks may represent something near breakage or something being destroyed. I feel this is the most appropriate font after looking through many of fonts in which I found Cracked. After discovering the font I used, I felt that red is the most appropriate and conventional of all the colours. This resulted in all my text being in the font of Cracked and the conventional use of red. Storyline within my opening sequence is presented almost instantly, as the first shot maintains an image of a knife being cleaned of blood, which is conventional of the genre of horror. This should immediately create enigma codes in which introduces my storyline appropriately. The enigma codes I am trying to create is firstly, who is the person, and secondly, where has this blood come from? From this point, I feel I have effectively presented my storyline, as well as establishing my genre of horror for using typical conventions of this genre. I feel this is shown in the very first shot. My characters are introduced on a similar way as that of Scream, one of the horror movies in which I analysed the opening sequence of. My key character is introduced as being a typical woman in which is carrying out her normal routine, unaware of what is about to happen as no fault of her own. I portrayed her as being isolated and vulnerable, as part of representing a stereotypical victim within a genre of horror. Chantel is represented as being comforted through her pet, in which alerts her to the very beginning of everything and what is about to happen. I took my ideas of presenting her like this as a result of watching many horror movies. I identified the norms of these horror movies and decided to put them into my own ideas, in which I produced in my opening sequence, which I feel was very successful. Within my opening sequence, I used very limited special effects, as I did not feel the need to do so. However, the special effects in which I did use was when the murderer was represented for a second time, in which they appeared to be knocking at the door. I overlaid the 2 shots from the knocking to the alerted Chantel so that the audience can successfully identify that he is knocking at her door. The sound of the knocking overlays Chantel's reaction so that it appears more successful. This was the only special effects in which I used.